So tonight, we joined together to celebrate Asian culture through the arts, through music and dance. And although we all come from different backgrounds, what we have in common is a love for the arts. And we love exploring cultural heritage and sharing that through performance. Let's start with Autorickshaw, since you guys are standing right next to me too. We know that it features the fabulous Suba Sankran, Dylan Bell, and Ed Hanley. Another round of applause for these wonderful performers. So, your band is known for your unique fusion of jazz, funk, folk, and classical and popular Indian music. Maybe Suba, you could start off with sharing how the group came together and describe your process of collaboration and how did you come up with the name Autorickshaw?
All right.
All those questions.
So, excellent. So, yeah, I'll answer, and you two can sprinkle in whatever additions you have. So Ed and I started this band back in 2003, but we actually met as co-composers. So Ed approached me. We didn't know each other before this time, really. We knew of each other, but we didn't actually meet each other before August of 2002, when Ed approached me to collaborate with him on a 16-and-a-half-minute composition that he was writing that incorporated both contemporary modern dance and South Indian Bharatanatyam dance, like the first piece that I performed for you tonight. And it needed to have a mix, a fusion of those two things. And so he kind of took over all the rhythmic side, and he said, I needed somebody to find the melodic and the harmonic side of things. So he approached me, and we were kind of reading each other's musical minds, and we thought immediately after we had completed the composition, we thought, we need to start a band. And so that's how Autorickshaw was born, actually, was just the two of us. And then the name we found when we were both embarking on trips to India. And so we were desperately making a very quick kind of EP demo CD to send out to the councils and things like that, and some other world music pioneers in Canada. And we didn't have a name for the band. There was no title on the CD. And so we looked at the back of a Lonely Planet guide, and of course, in the glossary at the back of the India Planet guide is Autorickshaw. Now, what's cool about the name Autorickshaw is the most common mode of transportation, taxi, motorized taxi in India. The beauty of rickshaw is like the traditional cycle or hand-pulled rickshaw. Auto is the automatic motorized side, so it's got a mix of both modern and traditional. And we thought, okay, this is the perfect name for a band that embodies the same.
Yeah. Very
there
cool.
you have it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Do you guys want to jump in and share a few things?
I think Suba pretty much covered it
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
I have nothing to add.
No. Maybe talk a little bit about the percussion, like how you guys. I really enjoyed the trade-off between you guys. It was like a competition, right? I'm gonna give this mic.
Yeah, no, I've got.
You've got a mic.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Speaking of ancient and modern, why don't we start with the H percussion first? Well, a quick bio note. I've been studying tabla, North Indian classical percussion since 1990. I think, yeah. And I started in Toronto with my teacher Ritesh Das, and I studied with his guru in California, but I've also made over a dozen trips to India, mostly to study with different teachers in Pune, Chennai, and Kolkata. And I was attracted to the instrument just actually because of the vocables, the spoken rhythmic language was really fascinated me. And so it's really important because your hands are doing two different things, but the instruction can be an instruction for your right hand, an instruction for your left hand, an instruction for both hands at the same time, or an instruction for which, and I think of those as letters, or you learn that phrases that are like words, and then you build poems and longer stories, and then like any language, like I'm doing now, you can improvise on that language, so it gets quite sophisticated. So fascinating language, and it's imitative. So if I'm playing a deep stroke, the sound is very deep. If I'm playing a fast staccato stroke, the sound is very fast and staccato. Similar to if Dylan is imitating a drum kit.
That's right. So I pass it over. I grew up playing drums in high school. And I was always kind of a wannabe drummer. At some point, I realized it was a lot easier and I had a lot less carrying of stuff to do if I just did it with my face. So that's how I sort of got started with that. I have some experience with Indian music through Suba's father, the great professor, Dr. Trichy Shankaran. So learning the sort of South Indian vocabulary and then translating into drum language was something that sort of came through my time with Autorickshaw. In terms of learning how to make drum sounds with my face, that is something that is found in the a cappella world. So for people who are listen to contemporary a cappella music, it's a type of music where its main sort of raison d'etre is to imitate vocal sounds or imitate instrumental sounds with the voice. So you can do guitar sounds, keyboard sounds, trumpet sounds, and drum sounds. And so through many years of singing in a cappella ensembles, I developed this vocabulary of making drum sounds with my voice. And then in my time with Autorickshaw, built up the vocabulary to incorporate the South Indian rhythms doing that. And that means that Ed and I can either trade back and forth or we can create complementary rhythms such as we did at the very end of Trouble with Hari, where I provide a basic kit and Ed is filling out, also giving a full drum kit sound. But because the two sounds are quite timbrely different, you can have two drummers on stage and it still works.
It absolutely works. It was fantastic. Thank you so much, Autorickshaw. Thank you. So I'm going to pass the microphone over to Isaac, all the way at the end of the row there. I'm going to ask him a question. So Isaac, we heard your wonderful choir perform tonight, and you are a passionate performer yourself. Definitely. Wonderful, wonderful, graceful movements there. Could you share how you came to be the conductor and music director of TKCC and what your artistic goals are for the choir in the performance of both Western art music and Korean music?
Right. TKCC, well, being a conductor is really funny because not everyone gets to, continue pursue their childhood dream. But when I was 8, I got to conduct a little school orchestra, and then that gave me a passion to say to my mom, I want to become a conductor. And she's like, well, learn piano first. So ever since then, I've been learning piano and music, very intense, traveling around the world, Europe, Paris, Belgium, and New York for a decade. And now I'm back home in town, and and then transitioning into conducting was after I moved here in Toronto, and it's been very fun ever since. And I think the job of the conductor is to feed the energy to the musicians and delivering the more clearer message to the audience through music. I guess my personal goal would be continue making great recordings, and I guess as a musicians, we're always trying to make a legacy out of music, and I guess that's my ultimate goal, just like you guys.
Yeah. Thank you. Well said. Thank you. Okay, and finally we've got Emily and Alice. They're going to obviously share a microphone, or maybe fight over the microphone. We'll see. There's 2 microphones. There's no need to fight. There's no need to fight. I've collaborated with Emily and Alice on a previous production called Venom of Love, and it's another story based on Chinese legendary folktale. Is that how we would describe it? And so I'm just interested in what made you choose these stories, what inspired you to pick them, and also how did you go about, for Alice writing the music, Emily doing the dance choreography?
Okay, so
okay, it's open for you, Alice. Go take it away.
Yes, actually, even before Venom of Love is actually like an epic production. Is 1 hour of a dance, or more like a ballet. And but before that, Emily and I always dream of like projects, and of course with our Chinese heritage, there's so much tales, and especially the one which is very evocative. So Venom of Love is based on, I think maybe if you speak Cantonese, Bak Sa Jun, like the legend of the white and the green snakes. So about, all this deal with human, like love triangles, demons, and gods, the struggle. So much to do. And so that's our first big project. Maybe Emily can
Yeah,
speak
the
more.
project was quite big, and we actually had the privilege of having Vanya and a drummer who is a percussionist, Alejandro, at that time to play the drum. And we incorporated them into our production, which was quite fabulous. And within the storytelling, we often ask ourselves, what does this tale means to you? Because I believe that this story, the tale of the white and the green snake, goes around like a lot of Asian country, not just in China, but I believe even the nine-tailed fox. I've been researching in Japan and also in Korea as well. So every tale has its sort of different endings. And for the Venom of Love, we want to make it more more prominent to our daily life, our 21st century. So we kind of tweak it a little bit. It's always in the olden days where female have to suffer in the end. And so I said, no, this time we're gonna get our scholar and he's gonna transform into a green, a blue snake instead. So there's all these kind of different tales that we're telling in terms of reflecting upon the society right now.
Yes, I think as a composer, it's such a wonderful journey. Work with Emily. She is a wonderful choreographer, very imaginative, very creative, and she is a beautiful dancer too. So I think it's all sparked the imagination between a composer and a dancer choreographer. I put my contribution into the music, which I incorporate live performers with the dancer, and electronic music fused with Chinese instrument and live singing. So it is not easy when we combine the whole thing together, but I think it's a blessing, with Vanya and a lot of other artists that we are comfortable and we're familiar. It's always a joy to see the end product, which is quite satisfactory.
Yes, and I just love, of course, Alice's music from the start. So here we are.
Great, thank you so much. Really, really thank you for the information. Thank you, Allison and Emily.
First of all, I want to say thank you for a lovely collection of performances. It might sound like a weird question, but because you're artists and you've interacted with so many audiences, what kind of selling points would you make to various levels of government who are always trying to find ways to cut funding, especially to the arts? What kind of selling points would you make to increase funding to the arts?
Good question. Anyone want to jump in on that? Suba? Yeah?
Sure.
Suba's very...
Yeah, I mean, I feel like music encompasses all things, not just arts. And I feel like, government bodies often think of it as a specific category, but music is also language. Music is architecture. Music is math. Music encompasses everything. It teaches, even from the stories we just heard a few moments ago, we're talking about geography, we're talking about history, we're talking about legacy and passing on stories of the people for the people. And so my argument or my debate and my conviction is that music encompasses all things, not just the arts, something that is considered sort of frivolous in certain circles. And so I feel that it's absolutely important, and it informs who you are as a person and where you came from and where you're going to. So it represents past, present, and future as well.
I'm going to add something from a different angle of that, which is there's this sort of concept that the arts, the performing arts, are something that is done by a small group of people at a large group of people sitting in a room. And there's the artists here, and there are the passive audience members there. Well, the first thing you will have noticed, there were two things you will have noticed in this performance alone. First of all, we got the entire audience singing. We involve people. We create community through what we do. And what we do is an active participatory event. It's not something to be consumed by people. The second thing you'll notice is that when particularly when you looked at the final choir, I am guessing that not everyone in your choir makes their entire living as an artist. I'm guessing that many of those people are people in the community.
That's right. We're a community choir.
Arts are the way to engage community. It's not just about the performers. It's, as Suba said, it's about legacy, it's about storytelling, it's about community engagement, and I think these are some of the points that need to be made in order to recognize the value of what it is that is done here and why it is worth continuing to fund.
Thank you for those well-articulated points. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the wonderful question. Yeah.
First of all, ni hao, ne hao, annyeonghaseyo, and vanakkam.
Impressive. Yeah.
Impressive indeed.
Although if it wasn't vanakkam, I could have said namaste, namaskar, sat sri akal, or assalamu alaikum.
Vanakkam is fantastic. Thank you.
So at the beginning of this performance, there was a land acknowledgement where they recognized the Mississaugas of the credit, as well as the Seneca of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Huron-Wendat and so on. But as many of you might know, there are indigenous and minority groups in Asia as well. Like there are the Ainu in Hokkaido in northern Japan. There's the Amis and other Taiwanese Aboriginal peoples. There's the Andaman Islanders in the territory of India, like off the coast rather. And there's various groups who are actually distant cousins of Australian Aboriginals who live in places like Malaysia and Indonesia. But many of those voices don't get a chance to be heard here, although at last year's Taiwan Fest at the Harbourfront Centre, there was an Amis performer who produces like techno music, but with influence from like more traditional Amis music and so on. So I was wondering, going forward, like maybe in a future Asian Heritage Month events, would there be an opportunity to build those bridges both between people who are from the majority groups from those countries, like Wajin Japanese or Han Taiwanese, and the Aboriginal peoples of their own countries, and also help raise awareness of them here in Canada, both with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis who are living here, and also with everyone else here in Turtle Island who might benefit from that kind of cross-Pacific solidarity and awareness raising, that sort of thing.
I'll take a crack at answering your question. Understood. I think that's really important that we expand and learn and get to know many different cultures, Asian cultures and aspects of those different cultures, and bring them, highlight them, bring them to the front. Definitely every year for us curators, it's a challenge to find artists that we can collaborate with, and we are always expanding our network and expanding our knowledge about all these artists that, to be honest, I'm quite ignorant of a lot of these indigenous groups that you've just mentioned in Asian countries, and I would love to learn more about them. So definitely that is a goal for us ultimately, to bring more different kinds of Asian representation to the stage. And it's going to be like a long-term goal. We're going to build on it bit by bit and network and get to know each other and collaborate. And I think that's always the goal for artists. I think art, as we've already talked about, is a key communication point. And it's going to be the foundation for us to sort of reach out and collaborate and share our humanity with everyone. So I hope that sort of answers the question. It's a very in-depth question, and I thank you for asking it. And I hope that I touched based on it as much as possible. Yeah.
Iera kere, which is thank you in Ainu.
Xie. Okay, thank you for your question. Next person.
Okay. First, I'd just like to thank all the artists for just showing up and sharing your gifts with us, and also sharing your story. My question is that I'm really curious to know how your journey through music and performance has helped to inform and mold the way you identify and connect to your respective cultures.
So many great questions tonight. Anyone want to jump in on that?
You know, it's really funny because, like I said, I'm professionally trained in classical music, not really so in traditional Korean music, right? And after working with my choir, I've been exposed and, you know, learning, analyzing, you know, studying the background, the history. That the more I study, it's I start to appreciate a lot more, and I feel like I connect more. And after some concerts, when you know audience comes in and say, you know, today's concert was really beautiful and it really touched my heart, and really, you know, just one person saying that does the job sometimes, right? So, and I think we have different genre of music tonight. And one thing that I was listening, and some of the genres that I've never even listened to because I'm just really stubborn and I always just listen to classical music only. But as I was listening to different genre and like world music, one thing that I felt was the rhythm, or like when, especially when you're collaborating with different artists, being together. You know, the rhythm is so important, and you know, and that aspect actually, you know, applies to every genre of music, right? Whether if it's a dance or music or even literature too. I think. And I really appreciate it, sort of the music and art sort of connects it all, you know, the root. And even if you think about it, the literatures and everything, the paintings, the music in Western history, they really, you know, when paintings become more Monet, you know, more watery, then music also becomes more petally and more watery too, right? So it really has a close connection.
Great. Suba, can I add something?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Toronto, but I came from a fairly strict South Indian household. My father is a child prodigy of the instrument I mentioned before. So I grew up with music from birth. And but because I was born and raised here, and the only one in my family who was born and raised here in that time of life, I really felt like I had one foot in the East and one foot in the West. And I spent my entire life figuring out what that meant to me. How did it shape me? Well, I grew up with a little bit of an accent, and apparently I would sit in the corner saying my ABCs and unrolling my R, the R, when I got to, you know, Q, R, S, and I'd say R, R, and I'd get that, whatever I thought was Canadian, what it meant to be Canadian in that moment. And so that's sort of swinging the pendulum in that direction. But it was only by the time I got to high school, I was studying music that entire time, both my South Indian classical music as well as many other styles of music, choir singing, choir conducting, composing, arranging, all that stuff. But it was only by the time I got to high school in the arts program there that I finally reconciled those sides of me. And it was my grad recital in high school, because I went to an art school, where I invited my father to accompany me, and it was the first time any of my high school friends had ever heard me sing Indian music. And they just said, "Who are you?" It was so funny. Yeah. So that was my big sort of reveal moment where I came to terms with all this beautiful music that I had grown up with. And from that time onwards, it's a band like Autorickshaw, creating a band like that to help make sense of my identity as a hyphenated Canadian. And it's in everything I do, in my compositions, in my arrangements, in my theater sound design, always finding what I like to call connecting the cultural dots. And it's ongoing. I think it's going to be there for the rest of my life, trying to figure out what it all means to me and what it means in the moment, because we're moving history as we go, right? We're evolving all the time. But music is it's such an amazing tool for all the reasons we mentioned before, but it's also a tool for communication, a tool for healing, a tool for understanding as well. And so for me, a lot of that journey is about understanding the music, understanding the language that it comes from, what is the root, what is the etymology, and then how can I present it in a way that's accessible now and relevant to me now. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Thank you. The beautiful question.
Beautifully answered too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think how are we for time? I think we have kept you in your seats for quite some time. And is there any other questions? No? Yes? I thought I saw a hand. I think we should call it an evening, shall we? We shall. Okay, thank you so much for coming tonight. And we'll see you at next year's annual Asian Heritage Month. Good night.